Hi, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you back. Today's a special day. I've got a friend in the studio who's got an incredible story that I think will not just encourage you, but give you some much needed perspective. And he has the ability to just make you feel so content with where you're at. And he and his wife, Stephanie, have become great friends of the organization. You may have seen some of their videos, and today I'll be interviewing him. He's going to share from a unique perspective and how the addict, both male and female, walk down this road of shame and self-destruction and finding your way back to healing and wholeness and just breaking free from so much shame and self-hatred. So my guest today is Mickey Peters. Thanks for being here, Mickey.
Glad to be here.
So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about you, a little bit about your story, so they can understand you're not just someone off the street, but this is stuff you've lived. You've lived and breathed this. You're not just a survivor, but you've been where so many of our audience members, and your wife has been where so many of our audience members have been.
So first D-Day was back in 2001, and that was when I told Steph that not only was I having an affair, but my affair partner was pregnant. And so that began a journey of recovery, really. The first diagnosis I received of being a sex addict was about a week later. I was sitting with my therapist, and he heard the story, and he said, "I think you're a sex addict." And I said, "Well, I'm not sure what that is, but..." I took the test. I got a very good score, very high score, so confirmed that indeed I was a sex addict. So that set me on a journey of recovery and healing, working the steps, getting into a 12-step recovery for sex addiction. And so I've been on that journey since then. And Steph and I began with working with the Fair Recovery in 2010 as a mentor couple. I think we're in the very first EMS online with Rick as our mentor. And so, yeah, we've been on this journey for a long time, and together working with the Fair Recovery as a mentor couple, and I with as a mentor with Hope for Healing. And then alongside that, working in 12-step recovery since then. So, yeah, just
Quite the road.
Quite the road. A long, crooked journey of recovery and, of course, some relapse. I know Steph and I are the relapse prevention couple. It's one of our videos on the Fair Recovery.
You know, we've all got black eyes, and we can all sit around the table. We could bring, Rick and his wife Steph, and we could all talk about our own black eyes. And so, do you still identify with the diagnosis that you were a sex addict?
Yes, definitely. I'm a sex addict in recovery.
It's great. And I love the recovery piece, because so many times, growing up in the 12 steps, you say you're an alcoholic, but there isn't always a lot of hope for change or redemption.
Mm-hmm.
And, we talked off camera about our theme today is kind of getting out of our own way.
Right.
Now, do you find an addiction that we get, and I know the answer, but I want to tee it up for you. Talk a little bit about how we get in our own way.
Well, it's shame and fear. You get covered up in all the negatives of that, the stigma of that. And so I can't believe I'm an addict, and it's an obligation and a duty, and it's something I wish I didn't have to do.
Right.
And so then you just, it's a battle, to get through it. And the real turning point is embracing it. When you get to the point of, okay, this is who I am, this is my story, and so I'm just going to embrace it and really lean into it. And it's, 2 Corinthians 12 that Rick uses a lot, and James 1, consider it pure joy.
Yeah.
And so it's just that turning point of really embracing that's my story. And the upside of that, there's a tremendous upside, the blessing, the promises of recovery. And so as you start to experience those, and you realize, wow, I'm becoming the person. I can look at myself in the mirror and feel good about that. And it's another way of living. It's embracing that kind of a new paradigm, which is I'm a sex addict in recovery.
How long do you think it took you to admit you were an addict. You know, so many are like, no, I'm just this or I'm just that. And
Right.
I'm not an addict, but I grew up with some real strong addiction tendencies to alcohol and a lot of drugs when I was young. And I don't and have never been diagnosed as a sex addict, but in dealing with so many addicts and just coaching and helping them and just supporting them, so often there can be this, no, I'm not. And then the spouse sticks back and goes, really?
Right.
So for you and your wife, I mean, what was that process like? What finally made you accept it and go, you know what? This is my life now.
I was blessed because when I sat with my therapist, I had a pregnant wife, a pregnant mistress, and I was having sex with prostitutes. And, and so when he suggested that, as I always say, if I could have, I would have denied it. But wow, okay, yeah, probably is. And when I took the test and it was so clear, I forget exactly what the score was, but it was like an A, a solid A.
not the A you want, but the A you needed, I guess.
Yeah. And so I got diagnosed and accepted that early, but then really embracing the program, really leaning into it and not just, you kind of start off with, okay, what's the bare minimum I can get away with?
That's exactly right. Checking boxes, we said.
Yeah, just stay sober. I just want to do enough to stay sober. And so then it's like, you're right there on the edge. So if you get triggered, you have a setback, then all of a sudden it's real easy to have a slip or get into relapse because you're right on the edge.
It.
Yeah,
you're white
exactly.
knuckling it.
And so for me, the turning point was really leaning into the 12 steps and the concept of recovery, and that there was upside there. That it was, wow, okay, this is really where God can work in a powerful way in my life for transformation. It's about becoming a different kind of guy. That process of, in biblical speak, we'd say sanctification, becoming like Christ, where you're living a different kind of life, where you're living in recovery. You'd say living in the solution. As you live more and more and more in the solution, the addictive way of life, you get further and further away from that. And so it's the outer circle, living in the solution that is the real, which is a lot of work.
So when you say living in the solution, I love that. It's great verbiage. I'm already like, I got to do a video just on that.
Right.
But coming from the addiction mindset, what does living in the solution mean? What does it look like?
Well, it's a lifestyle. What is call it my modus operandi for how does Mickey do life every day? And it involves exercise. It involves, my spiritual discipline, waking up, doing some reading, some praying, some meditation, connection with other men. I probably average 3 or 4 calls a day,
really?
Talking to guys, checking in. Not about wanting to act out. It's about triggers and, wow, I've got a big call today. Can I bookend it? Living in community, living as a brotherhood, with guys that you can be honest with about what's coming ahead. Is going to be triggering. Taking a trip. I need to have a trip plan. I need to check it in with you. So you're really setting yourself up for success every day.
So Rick calls it new habits, new patterns, and new routines, right?
Right.
And so it sounds to me like, I loved how you said just leaning in. Everything you've said so far today, there hasn't been a lot of resistance.
Oh, yeah.
But I find addicts, men and women, we can be resistant, incredibly resistant, especially early on. And so for you, you said it wonderfully when you leaned in. So what caused you to lean in and live in the solution? What do you think was that moment or a series of moments?
Well, there's always a part of me that's resistant.
Thank you for being honest.
Well, no, of course. It's like, there's that part of you that's always, and I would always deny that part. When Steph, even going as far back when I was at home with parents, it's like, Mom and Dad, no, I want to be a good boy. I want to do the right thing. Well, no, there's a part of me that wants to act out. There's always that part of me that, hey, let's go look at some porn. Let's go, and so it's engaging that guy and being honest about it. Hey, there's a part of me that's,
I love that. That's the radical honesty that so many are afraid to. Now, I will tell you, you've just scared the hell out of most betrayed spouses, male and female. What do you say to them?
Well, that's, I can tell my Stephanie what I think she wants to hear, which I spent most of my life basically BSing myself and her. No, that's not who I am. I'm not that guy.
Right.
Well, there's a part of me that is that guy. That's the in biblical speaking, and you call it the flesh.
Yeah, it's the dark side. It's our darkness. It's our shadow for those that don't come from faith. It's our shadow self.
Right, and so just engage. Hey, he's there. Let's bring him into the light. Let's be honest about him, and even sometimes in recovery, you'll be talking about that guy, and you laugh at him almost like, of course. That's what I want to do. Or I thought about that, and
right.
So it's really bringing it into the light and acknowledging it, that then takes away the power. Because as long as it stays in secrecy and in the shadow, it has power, and it just waits and bides its time.
I think you're saying so many great things, and I think we've talked about this, but when it's in darkness, it just has so much power, but you bring it into the light. And you work with a lot of guys, helping them bring their stuff into the light. What are some of the ingredients? Because, you talk to some guys, and if you were to share some of your darkness, they'd be like, oh my gosh, they'd look at you weird, right? Like when I first told our story to a therapist, right? The therapist shrieked in horror on at least several moments. So it's not just talking, right? It's not just, hey, I'm struggling. It's not that. That's not accountability. But it's also not this shaming when they bring stuff to you like, hey, I wanted to act out, or I did act out. And it's not being this heavy-handed taskmaster. But what is it? What is healthy accountability? What is a healthy, and you're coaching guys, you're working with a lot of guys. So what to you is an environment that supports them bringing it to the light, but not just being like, oh, I talked about it, now it's all over. Now I'm fixed.
Right. Well, it's safe place. You have to have a safe place where I'm not going to judge, or, there's no judgment, no criticism, no belittling, none of that. It's like, tell me, asking good questions, bringing it out more instead of, like I say, that's really not me. I don't know where that's coming from. Like, really? How long were you acting out? Oh, for 20 years. And really, of course, there's a part of you that it's going to be there for a long time. And
right.
That's what's going on. And so what you really want to do is get beyond I want to act out, and what's the trigger? What's the trigger behind that? The reason you want to act out is because you're feeling something you don't want to feel. And so I want to change that, so I want to act out. And that, of course, the sexual arousal, that takes the place of that negative feeling, but there's a healthy way to do that. What's going on? Talk about that trigger. Well, my boss or my wife is, I feel one down, I feel less than, I feel I'm never going to measure, whatever the issue is. And then, talking about at that level is very helpful. And then what's the plan? Let's talk about a plan and keep it simple, keep it, one day at a time, not, this big,
right.
What can you do to deal with that? How can you start to, when you feel that, who do you call? How do you want to check that in? So then, and the more honest I am, it's really humility.
I still am stuck on, you were in this scenario, your wife's pregnant, your mistress is pregnant. It's kind of like, I kind of tell people, look, you've got 5-10 years of acting out. Do you think you're going to turn it off like a light switch? Don't you think it's time to really get serious? Because your life, unfortunately, is proof that you have so many self-destructing tendencies that if you think that you're just going to white knuckle it and say, no more, and how many betrayed spouses have heard, I'm done, no more, and then boom, and boom. And the addict keeps acting out, but yet stays in denial and says, no, not this time, or not this time, I'll try harder. I think you'll agree, trying harder is not the answer.
Well, the willpower, I've learned my lesson, I'm never going to do it again.
Right.
Well, just give it some time.
Yeah. It's sad that we're laughing, but only because we've said it. We're not making light of it, but it's just, that's the mentality.
Sure.
Right?
Right. And so, if you have any indication that you're an addict, assume you are. That's the best course of action. I've never heard anybody in a 12-step recovery meeting say, you know what, I've wasted 10 years in recovery and I found I'm not an addict. I've heard many, many, many stories of I denied I was an addict for X amount of time. Finally, I did this again, or I went even further. Wow. I wished I had just assumed I was an addict a year ago, 5 years ago, and started working a program, and I wouldn't be where I am today, which is usually worse.
Absolutely.
Now I'm out of the house. I'm living alone, trying to find a place to, so it's always much better, much safer, just assume you're an addict and start going to meetings and so you need the 12 steps, work the 12 steps, find a sponsor. And the real keys are the process of that 12 steps, but it's connection with other men. As you have accountability, but I think it's a lot more than that. It's a brotherhood, it's connection,
Absolutely.
It's support, encouragement, and accountability too, in the context of a relationship with other men in the program that are on the same journey. And then the other key is giving back when you're ready, the 12 step, or in our case, we do that too through affair recovery. It's really the process of discipleship, because then you start teaching it and giving back. And then, of course, many times I'll do a Hope for Healing, and I've taught that, 40 times. And I'll go through a lesson and go, wow, that finally really dropped.
Exactly.
Went from here to here. I've taught that 30 times. I've shared about that. And now finally it's like, wow, it's really.
Exactly. If you are watching wondering what program he may be referring to, Hope for Healing is our 17-week program at affairrecovery.com. You can go to the website. We have groups for all men. We have groups for all women. And you don't have to be an addict to take the course. But if you are an addict, you will absolutely love it. It is for unfaithful spouses. And you've led those groups as long as the program has been going. I mean, what is the strength of your program? Not just Hope for Healing, because it's a great curriculum, but in terms of your program, how you live, what have you found to be so successful and so not keeping you from acting out, but maintaining joy and purpose and living in the solution? Whether you come from faith or not, there's a phrase called living in the light, where you're out of darkness, where you're not living in just shame and self-pity and self-hatred and self-shaming. But you're walking in the light of, if you come from faith, yes, God, forgiveness, mercy, compassion, forgiveness, kindness. If you don't come from faith, you're just like, man, I'm at peace with myself. I've accepted who I am. I've accepted what I am, and I'm okay now. So what have you found to be the secret to your program and how you live? What keeps you walking in the light?
Probably the most important thing is the connection with other men, and that daily, it's really a daily connection with, probably in my case, 10 or so guys. I don't call them every day. Some of them I do call them every day, or almost every day.
It's so interesting that that's what you said. Not the curriculum per se, not this heavy-handed, every day, but just other men.
Well, and so how does God speak to me? Through other men, mostly. There's, scripture and prayer and worship, etc. But when another man picks up the phone and responds to you when you're triggered, when you're in a place of hurt, you're hurting, and you're able to share that, and they listen and they receive that, that's a powerful moment. Or they, speak into your life some truth. That's being humble enough. I mean, the key is being humble and realizing I can't do this alone.
Not thinking you're above it, like I don't need these guys, I'm good.
No, it's God. I believe God made us to do life together. And not just in a, kind of superficial way,
Sure.
or typical guy way, sports, news, and weather, right? It's sharing our lives together and staying connected. And that for me is how I, if I'm feeling like, wow, I'm many times in the old way, I used to think, well, let me get myself together and then I'll call somebody.
Yeah.
I want to be, together.
I got to manage my image.
Instead, it's like when you're in that valley, when you're at that point of, wow, I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling really down. I can hardly get out of bed and go to work. I feel like I'm walking through quicksand, it's just, whew. That's where you need that connection. That's where you need that support. And you're able to then, okay, I can get through the next moment. I can get through today.
That's exactly right.
And so that's the main thing. But the other aspects are giving back, being of service. When you're able to help another person, be there for them, hear what they have to say, give them some feedback or some input, some support, prayer. Then that's also gets my mind off of me, right? When my mind's on me and it's all about Mickey and what am I getting or not getting, or
and you're just swirling. You're just swirling. And I love that about, it's the concept of you pick up your brother, right? And for women, you pick up your sister and you just say, hey, I'm no man left behind. Like
right.
And oddly enough and painful enough, there's, I think, guys that think, or women that think, hey, I lost my marriage, I'm dead, you guys are done with me. And I've never seen you do that. I've always seen you say, hey, this guy may lose his marriage. He needs us even more, right? For the divorced community or the separated community, you can feel like you're left for dead.
Right, but there's always tomorrow. There's always a second chance. It's amazing to me the upside of this journey. My initial perspective was I just want to keep my marriage. I hope I didn't screw my kids up too bad. Wow, and I can tell you stories. I mean, Emma, my daughter, interned here this past summer. Wow, that but I would never be so audacious to think that my daughter's, the recovery is going to reach that point. And so the upside is amazing. I mean, Steph and I are at a place, better than we've ever been. The best is yet to come, and it'll be better than I can imagine. And I believe that as I've experienced that. When something happens that, there's no way I could have imagined that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, there is hope, and that's why you do it, because you want to. I've been there. I've been there in that place of like, wow, how are we going to pick up the pieces? How are we going to get, through today? And so, that's a big part of my recovery program is telling the story so that people can have hope. People can realize, and my story's pretty crooked, pretty crazy.
You're not going to get any shame here, brother. We're in the same boat, just different oars.
And so they say, well, if he can do it, if they can do it, wow, And
it's a privilege to be able to really have an opportunity. And that's what I didn't start today with. But for those of you that are watching, we've found a way to manipulate Mickey into video blogging more often. He's going to start to make videos. It's going to be great. And so I wanted you to get introduced to him today and to see, just to hear his heart, to hear the spirit in which he communicates, his compassion for brothers and sisters who are struggling with addiction and are trying to heal. And so I thought what would be great today, Mickey, is to just take a minute or two and just talk to the addicts or those that they continue to refute the idea that they're addicts, but their life testifies against them that they are in fact addicts. Or maybe they're just struggling. And we both have been in some dark places that we hope, pray, and never plan on ever being again. But we were all there one day. And so take a minute and talk to them and just share your heart, share some hope. How can they, it seems a little bit cliche, but I really believe there are people that are out there watching that one day can be in a spot like this, in a life that they never thought was possible, with a joy that seems like it'll never ever come again. So take a minute, encourage them, let them see that there is hope, regardless of what it feels like.
Well, first I would say, if I can do it, so can you. Really, there is hope. There is a way forward. And so the first step in that is really, in my case, was to embrace that this is my story and reach out. And for those of you that are spiritual, get on your knees and pray and ask God into your life and for Him to help you. And then, the best way for me to always think of it is just the next right thing. You don't have to have it all planned out. If you are struggling with whether or not you're an addict, I would encourage you, just assume you are. Just assume you are. You will never, ever regret that. I promise you that. And just find a meeting, reach out, make connection with other men or women that are on that same journey. And you'll find acceptance. You'll find people that are maybe further along on that path than you are, again, to get some hope and some encouragement that you can do it too. And so please don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your marriage or your family. And really, it's an inside job. So it starts right here in our heart and in our mind. And just, again, the next right thing.
Dude, this has been fantastic. And my hope is it's the first of many times that we'll bring you in, because I think you have so much to give. And the fact that you just lay it out there and you don't take all these extra words and you're not trying to manage an image, you're just like, here I am, here's what worked, and here's what didn't work. We got to get your wife in next time too, because that'll be a great story. But thank you for coming in. This was fantastic.
You're welcome.
If you're an addict, or as Mickey alluded to, suspect that you might be one, please don't just run out into the sea of resources. It doesn't have to be that hard. You can leave a comment on any of the platforms that you're watching this video. You can also email into affairrecovery.com. You can use the email info@hope-now.com. We would love to help you. We would love to find a place for you, find a sponsor for you, give you suggestions on how you can maybe take a course called Hope for Healing, how you can find a sponsor, how Mickey can even support direction for you on how do you heal, how do you get out of the muck and the mire and the quicksand. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to make a lot of the same mistakes that Mickey and I made. It can be a smoother journey. It's never going to be an easy one, but it's not going easy for you right now, and that's okay. There's hope. There's a new day ahead of you. It's going to cost you time, sacrifice, effort, and most of all, as Mickey alluded to, it's going to cost you your pride. But we promise you, it is worth every ounce of sacrifice that you are going to have to make. So reach out. We're here for you.